Welcome back. Conversion therapy isn't new, but bans against it using it on minors are. In the past 5 years, California, Oregon, Illinois, Vermont, New Jersey, and Washington, D.C. have passed bans on the practice. Many cities and counties have also passed their own bans, including in Florida, but there are legal challenges. Why? Most of the therapy is done by faith-based organizations which are protected by the First Amendment. So would a ban here in Florida really have any impact? And joining us for more on tonight's discussion of conversion or reparative therapy is Ken Sheelan, co-chair of Equality Florida's Board of Directors. And joining us by Skype from Dallas, Texas is David Pickup, a reparative therapist. He is also co-founder of the National Task Force for Therapy, Equality, and a board member of National Association of Research and Therapy for Homosexuality. David, thanks for joining us, and let me start with you. Make the case about, number one, whether reparative or conversion therapy works, and number two, that it is the right thing to do under certain circumstances.
Well, thank you for having me on, Alan. I appreciate it very much. In the first place, everyone who's been on the broadcast so far has the wrong information. We don't do conversion therapy. We do safety. What safety stands for is sexual attraction, exploration, fluidity. Sexual attraction, exploration, safety. That's the broad. Don't use the term because it gets a really shame-based sound to it, that like giving somebody magic will bring the gay away. I do licensed psychotherapy.
David, let me just stop you there because we're having just a little bit of audio problems with your Skype signal. So let's hold on to that thought for just a moment. Ken, you've heard what David started to say, and give us your opinion. There's so much ground to cover here. Number one, just start with whether or not it works or doesn't work. Should people try to do this, whether you have a child or an adult?
Well, I think it's important to know that there have been a lot of studies on conversion therapy, reparative therapy, or aversion therapy. And there's not one credible bit of evidence, not one shred of evidence, that it works. You can't convert somebody who is genuinely attracted to the same sex to a straight sexual relationship. There are at least 15 national American credible medical and mental health associations who reject it, who said there's no evidence that it works. The Columbia Law School did a study. The American Psychoanalytical Association did an in-depth study. Nobody has found any evidence that it works.
David, I hope you've been able to hear Ken's response there. I want to give you an opportunity to respond to that. Can you cite any medical study that is recognized that shows that this kind of therapy does work?
Yes, Shitlow and Schroeder. Also, reviewed journal article that Ken is completely ignoring, and also California Equality Board completely ignores. APA ignores. Find that on the journal sexuality.com. And so the APA's extensive word mentioning page 82 of their task force report on orientation change, they say there is no harm. So if there's no harm, why is Florida doing this? Because there's no therapist, and I'm talking about authentic therapy, which by the way falls under that term safety.
But let me just point out to you one thing that I read, and that was from Russell Moore, the political point man for the Southern Baptist Convention, which has publicly repudiated the practice, and even the opinion editor at the school newspaper for Liberty University, which after all was founded by Jerry Falwell, has editorialized against that. So the religious community in many ways has seemed to come out against it.
No, they haven't. That's false reporting. You're not reporting all the news. Dr. Jeffress totally approves of it. There's countless who do not reject the idea. But I want to make a point. I do pray away the gate. Reparative therapy is not anything that Ken says that it does not harm. It is a licensed professional psychodynamic behavioral, and in some cases EMDR therapy.
Well, let me give. I'm sorry. Let me. We're still working on that audio, by the way. But Ken, let me give you an opportunity to respond to that, because he says that it is, there is a long history dating back to Freud of this kind of therapy. And
no, I didn't say that.
Well, I'm looking at my literature here. This has gone on for many years. There are licensed professionals out there who try to do that in some cases. So, I mean, this has been around.
Well, what's interesting is that every time studies are done and repudiates the claims that people like Mr. Pickup make, they change the story. And it's absolutely astonishing that he says that no harm is done by this therapy, because I think your earlier report with Jose Vega proves that it does create harm. It causes harm. It causes depression. It causes difficulty in relationships with other people. People attempt suicide.
All right. We're going to just take a pause right there. There's so much more to discuss on this issue of conversion or repair of the therapy. We'll continue in just a moment right after a check on our weather, so stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing conversion therapy. Florida lawmakers are filing legislation to ban it in the state, but should it be banned? And would the law have any impact? Our guests tonight are Ken Sheelan of Equality Florida, and joining us by Skype is David Pickup of the National Task Force for Therapy Equality. David, I hope we fixed up your audio there. I'm wondering if we could start, if you can explain the scientific nature of this therapy and how it actually works.
Sure, it's the same science that's been in existence for 40 years. I primarily do psychodynamic interventions. Psychodynamic therapy has been successful and accepted worldwide for decades. Now, when we apply that to homosexual healing, what happens is in science, everyone who enters into reparative believes that homosexuality is not interesting for them. I want to make that distinction. Force anybody in doing something beyond the system. We don't pray away the gay. The short story is, reparative therapy resolves the gender identity inferiority severe kind, and when it resolves the unmet needs that allows for sexualization and puberty of needs for love and affection and affirmation, then it resolves those feelings, and the feelings automatically dissipate. They automatically dissipate and lessen, and many men move on towards women.
Let me give you a chance to respond.
Well, I don't think he answered your question, because you asked what was the scientific basis for that therapy. The problem here is that we have not been able to establish, science has not been able to establish the causes of same-sex attraction. So it allows people like Mr. Pickup to come up with these ideas that they can change people because they say it's a matter of choice. You know, you've chosen to be gay. You've chosen to engage in same-sex relationships. That's not true. God knows if gay people were making choices to be gay, they wouldn't go through the turmoil that they go through in our society.
David, let me give you a chance to respond to that.
That's absolute nonsense. No credible therapist believes that somebody chooses their sexual feelings. These homosexual feelings happen because of trauma. And what our friend Ken is saying is that it's going to make it illegal for sexually and traumatically abused children who are born for heterosexuality, who believe that they are heterosexual. When they can't get the therapy they need that actually results in change, then they're going to, like I had pretty much some time ago, a person speak up and say, David, if I hadn't contacted you, I was going to commit suicide the next day.
David, let me just ask you, are you saying that every person who is gay suffered some sort of trauma that made them that way?
Every person in my office believes in their hearts that they were not born gay. And funny thing, there is no gay gene. Ken wants to go by science? Please go by science. There is no gay gene, there's no transgender gene, and sexuality tends to be fluid. I'm quoting the APA. There's your science right there. So if that's true, then why refuse to have therapy for children that works? This therapy really works.
Well, number one, Ken, I want to ask you, you're gay?
Yes.
Did you ever undergo a certain trauma that made you gay?
No, I came to that realization when I was a teenager. I tried to reject it. I didn't want to be gay because I was socialized to be straight. And so I rejected the same-sex attraction, and I got married, and I had children. I have 3 children, and I realized after several years that this wasn't working. I could not make a success of that marriage with my wife because I was not straight.
All right, let me move on to a different area of discussion here, because the Florida legislation that is being proposed now would only deal with conversion or reparative therapy that is done outside of religious institutions by professionals.
Licensed professionals.
So this would not address religious institutions if it's done by a minister or someone associated with a religious organization. Right. So there are ways around this.
False, David, because I've got the bill right here in my hands, and it says at the very end of the bill that a licensed professional, as described in paragraph A, this is either a medical or a mental health professional, who attempts to engage in conversion therapy with a person younger than 18 years of age, engages in unprofessional conduct, and is subject to disciplinary proceedings by the appropriate regulatory board. That tells you that religious institutions are not subject to this legislation.
No, it doesn't. It tells you the exact opposite, and I can prove it. Do you know how many marriage and family therapists who are licensed, some of them psychodynamic or cognitive behavioral therapists, are hired by churches and who are in fact ministers? So now the state has a problem between separation of church and state. I can't tell you the amounts of people that are underneath their licensure hooked into that church that now won't be able to practice their faith. But I'm not even talking about faith. I'm talking about licensed professional psychotherapy. The real thing, which is nothing of what Ken says, nothing, which he never looks at the evidence to find out what it really is. It's nothing like what he's saying.
David, let me ask you this, because at the beginning, both of you cited off certain organizations that were for and against. I'm looking at an article here that the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Counseling Organization, the National Association of Social Workers, the World Health Organizations systematically reputed these practices as harmful. Respond to that.
Then why didn't the APA, the American Psychological Association? They are the big gun in the world. They are the ones who have done, supposedly, even though I don't think it's adequate, research on the subject in a broad way. Their task force report is their fullest comprehension of that so far. None of the organizations that you just quoted did any research whatsoever. They copycatted each other.
The AMA doesn't know what it's talking about?
Exactly right.
He quoted the American Psychological Association, and they actually passed a resolution that says the American Psychological Association encourages mental health professionals to avoid misrepresenting the efficacy of sexual orientation change efforts by promoting or promising change in sexual orientation. So he's wrong.
I don't promise change. That's the answer to that. I don't promise change. I don't do that. And also the APA never condemn. Then why does the APA not condemn reparative therapy? Why does the APA say in their task force report there's no proof of harm? Obviously, you've got a lot of mixed up people in the APA. I'm an APA member. I ought to know what I'm talking about.
David, could you give me some kind of sense in terms of numbers, how many Americans go through this therapy each year?
No, I can't, because therapy is a very private thing. It would only be a wild guess. There's no statistics on that. I can't report to any certain, it's kind of a moot point at this point, because there's no research that has given those estimates yet. But what I can tell you is that Pray Away the Gay is not what we do. And it is egregious error that people like Ken and Equality California and Equality Florida all over the country say these things cause harm. So now you've got a sexually abused child who comes in, whose homosexual feelings came up because they were sexually abused by the same sex, especially if we get into adults.
I just want to ask you this question again. David, are you saying that every child who has feelings that they may be homosexual must have been abused in some way?
I have no science to back that up. All I can tell you is my clients have a right to their therapy. The state of Florida, these people in the state of Florida who are trying to ban the therapy, they're saying you can't have the therapy that you need, which is a violation of free speech guaranteed by the Constitution. It's a violation of parents' rights, client rights. It's unbelievable. It's a violation of spiritual rights when you have licensed counselors who are working underneath the auspices of churches. But professional therapy is what really works, and that's the one area that Equality Florida will not tell you about. They won't give you all the science.
Well, hold on one second. Ken, I mean, the law does give parents of minors a great deal of latitude in terms of what kind of medical care they can and cannot be given. So wouldn't this be a violation of what, the law, both in Florida and around the country, that parents with parental rights have a right to have their children treated for certain things in certain ways?
This proposed legislation in Florida does not affect a parent's right to raise their child in the way they choose. This is about licensed professionals and those professionals who choose to engage in conversion therapy.
It's nonsense.
Well, it's not nonsense, because you keep saying that we say that this therapy is harmful. We're not saying the therapy is harmful. We're saying the medical professionals are saying it's harmful.
No, they're not. The APA is not saying that. They haven't condemned it. And everyone else who you cited today has not done any research. They've just simply copycatted. Do you think every organization is worth valid research? Yes, I do believe that's true, but they haven't done their research.
David,
in the country, so is Equality Florida.
All right, David, let's take another quick break. And when we return, we'll have final thoughts from both of you, plus what some of our viewers are saying about President Trump's relation with the media and fake news. So stay with us. Welcome back. Can you change someone's sexual orientation with therapy? Should the practice be banned in Florida? Our guests join us right now with final thoughts. And David, I want to give you the first shot. Make your case. What do you want viewers here tonight to take away from this conversation?
Alan, I'm going to make my case by telling you how my clients feel in session. When I have a sexually abused boy or adult who's come in and says, I've been traumatized, I've had homosexual feelings arise, I know I was born for heterosexuality, but I have this unwanted same-sex attraction, we go to the root causes through psychodynamic, time-tested procedures called, in some cases, reparative therapy. And when we heal those abuses, those traumas, those unmet needs in childhood, their homosexual feelings automatically, spontaneously lessen and dissipate, and many clients move on to women. So that's who they truly are. They don't believe they're born gay. I would never try to change somebody who believes they were born gay. Reparative therapy, authentic reparative therapy, not the junk that Mr. Sheelan says it is, really works. My clients experience change in session, and they say things to me sometimes like, man, David, this whole being my own sense of man in my own body, this subjective, marvelous feeling of what it feels to be healthy and manly in my own body, this feels a lot better than sex with men. When they say that, unsolicited by me, something's going on.
Ken, I want to give you the last word here.
Well, it's interesting. His argument has shifted again, because now he's talking about sexual abuse, which is entirely a different subject. This business of reparative therapy or conversion therapy is almost entirely the creation of religious and social conservatives. As I said before, there are at least 15 national and international organizations of medical professionals and licensed mental health counselors who have concluded that not only does conversion therapy not work, but it causes enormous harm, including increased drug use, depression, attempts at suicide. So if that's what the professionals are saying, then that's what I'm going to believe, and that's why I think this legislation is appropriate for Florida.
Gentlemen, thank you. But before we go, we want to share with you what some of our viewers are saying about last night's topic, fake news. The term became popular on the campaign trail to describe negative news stories planted by the Russians. Now, President Trump is using it in the Oval Office to question bad polls or negative news stories. And we asked you what you think about the president's war with the media. Gail Fritter-Small writes, how can the media be bad when they are showing clips of his own words coming out of his own mouth? Believe me, the media is not the problem. Sandy Hess-Snyder writes, no matter what he does or says, there will be haters and likers, just as with Obama, Bush, Clinton, Bush, etc. Can't please everyone all the time. And Bob Maston writes, love it. The media is not reporting the news anymore. They have become left-wing advocates. Don't trust them at all. Trump is 100% right about them. Yo, Bob. Some people perceive bias in anything that doesn't confirm their preconceived notion. Just saying. If you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And FYI, want to watch past Roundtable discussions? They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Thanks to our guests for being here tonight. Ken Sheelan is the co-chair of Equality Florida's Board of Directors, and David Pickup is a reparative therapist. He is also co-founder of the National Task Force for Therapy Equality and a board member of the National Association of Research and Therapy for Homosexuality.